Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. I'm back with a video to help you with your 2020 fantasy football drafts. Today we're going to talk about my top quarterback targets for 2020. These are the guys that I'm focusing on. It's not necessarily a top 10 list. It's not necessarily a top 5 list. I'm not clickbaiting the hell out of this for you. These are my top 10 quarterbacks on the year. You won't believe number 6. Stuff's lame. These are just the guys that I have the most shares of throughout all the drafts that I've done so far this year. And I'm going to tell you who and why and talk about kind of where their ADP is and the strategies that you can utilize building lineups around these types of characters to try and get yourselves in a winning position at the end of the draft. Whether it's your friends and family league, a high stakes season long league, or a best ball league, this information is useful for all of those types of things. So if you'd be so kind, drop a like on this video. I'm not going to tell you to subscribe and ring the notifications bell because you already know to do that, right? So let's just get to the video. Lamar Jackson. Now, I looked at my allocations before I went live on stream this morning. Every one of these videos is recorded live on Twitch. There's a link down below in the description if you guys are interested in seeing the show live. But I noticed that I have like one Patrick Mahomes lineup, but I got like 25% Lamar Jackson's. And the reason is this. When I play best ball leagues, and people don't seem to understand this, everybody sees fantasy football league the way that they interpret or define a fantasy football league, which is usually a transactional league where they play with their friends and family, and so they don't want all that much allocation or exposure to the same players or players from the same bye week. And they worry about, well, what am I going to do on that week? Best ball is what I play the most of. I probably play 98%, 99% of my fantasy football is best ball type leagues. So for me, I try to go after stacks using my quarterback with one, if not two of his pass catchers, because it's a deeper league without transactions, no waivers, no trades, and it's more of a war of attrition. It's much easier to be right about one thing than it is about 5 things. So if I think that one team is going to have a really great offensive season, I'm going to try and load up on that team and build it around their quarterback and their most key pass catchers. For me to get Lamar Jackson, I'm okay if you draft Lamar Jackson, but don't pair him with somebody like Mark Andrews, who I think is going to play more snaps and run more routes in 2020 than he did in 2019. And we know how efficient he was in 2019 with limited amount of snaps and limited amount of routes run. Like 45% of Lamar Jackson's routes, Lamar Jackson's dropbacks, 45% of the time, Mark Andrews ran a route. That's really, really low for a top tight end. Top tight ends run routes on about 75, 80, sometimes 85% of their quarterback's dropbacks. So think about how much more efficient Mark Andrews had to be last year. So if he's running routes on 70% of Lamar Jackson's dropbacks in 2020, the increase in volume, if he's not as efficient, will greatly override that decrease in efficiency, because I don't even think that Lamar Jackson can maintain a 9.5% touchdown ratio. That's just a touchdown percent. It's just not possible. So even if he falls to like 6%, but the volume increases, great. For you to get Lamar Jackson, though, and pair him with one of Marquise Brown, who's going in the 5th, sometimes the 6th rounds, and Mark Andrews is going in the 3rd, maybe the early 4th round in a lot of different drafts, you got to draft Lamar Jackson in the late 2nd round or early 3rd round. So my teams that have Lamar Jackson have ended up being teams that I draft in the top 3 of every draft. If I get Zeke, if I get CMC, or if I get Barkley, I'm coming back in the 2nd round. I'm probably taking Lamar Jackson to pair with them, especially if I get CMC. If I get CMC and Lamar Jackson, I've got the 2 highest scorers from last season, who also project to be the 2 highest scorers this season overall. And then I can reach and take somebody like Mark Andrews early. And then at the 4-5 turn, I can make sure I get Marquise Brown, and I've got the 3-team stack. I've been lucky enough a couple of times to get Andrews and Brown at the 4-5 turn, and I can load up with another running back, somebody like James Conner, somebody like Jonathan Taylor, if you want to reach just a hair to get him on your team, if you're as high on him as I am. But Lamar Jackson, one of my highest owned quarterbacks. Another team that I think is going to be absolutely fantastic this year is Dallas Cowboys. That offense was ridiculous last year. Dak Prescott threw for an absolute metric ton of yards, a lot of touchdowns. They added to the ability that they have on offense. Getting rid of Randall Cobb, replacing him with CeeDee Lamb. They are now younger, more athletic, more explosive in the slot position. They get rid of Jason Witten, who Hall of Fame tight end, but he's like, in his off days, he's building swing sets in his back seat and doing barbecues, as opposed to somebody like Blake Jarwin, who is ridiculously efficient with the little amount of targets he had a fantastic camp this year. Very easy to stack this entire team with as many options as you want. Amari Cooper going in the 3rd round, Gallup going around the 5th round, Dak going around the 4th round, so you get a little bit of a break if you don't want to pay for Patrick Mahomes and you don't want to pay for Lamar Jackson. You want to get a little bit of a break. You're still going to take a little bit of an early quarterback. Dak Prescott should be the 3rd quarterback off the board in most of your drafts, but I've seen Deshaun Watson go ahead of him more than a few times. I've seen people really reach for somebody like Kyler Murray above Dak Prescott, and I honestly think that Murray over Prescott is wrong. So where I'm getting a discount on Dak Prescott in the late 5th or 6th rounds, I'm absolutely nabbing him in those spots, and it's landed me with over 20% Dak Prescott across my allocation of lineups. As I said, Amari Cooper going in the early 3rd round, Gallup going in the 5th round, Blake Jarwin, my highest owned player in my drafts this year, is going in the 11th round. You're going to get 80-something targets from him. CeeDee Lamb going in the 10th round, 80-plus targets expected from him. You can stack Dak Prescott with 1, 2, 3 of his guys pretty easily without having to reach. Even if you don't get Amari Cooper in the 3rd, if you get Gallup and Jarwin, you're good. If you get CeeDee Lamb and Jarwin, you're good. If you get Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, fine. To go along with Prescott. Very easy to stack. Very complimentary players when it comes to doing that in terms of best ball, and I've got a lot of him. Russ Wilson is somebody that I have some, but I'm scared that I don't have enough, and the reason that I don't have enough is that the ones I do have with him is where I got lucky enough at a turn to nab both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and then I come back at the next turn and get Russ Wilson. I don't have a tight end that I really want to go after with him. There's no running back that catches a ton of balls from him. Very consolidated target percentage, mostly centering around DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I think I have like 10 Russ Wilson lineups so far. 3 of them have both of those 2 wide receivers. The rest of them, except for I think 1 has Lockett and the rest of them all have DK Metcalf. So stacking with just one of his guys is probably your most likely outcome. And for those of you who don't really want to stack, right? Because you're playing transactional leagues, you really only want one of their pass catchers. Either one is fine and very easy to pair. You get Lockett, you get DK Metcalf, whatever your preference is. And then on the way back, you get Russ Wilson around round 5, 6, probably well after Dak, sometimes in the 7th round if you get lucky. Deshaun Watson, probably my easiest QB stack because of the value that exists in the 6th round with Will Fuller, in the 8th round or 7th or 8th round with Brandon Cooks, and then Deshaun Watson fitting in there. You can get one or both of those pass catchers to go with Deshaun Watson. I've said over and over again how much I like this Texans offense and have for the last few years. It was very consolidated to go Hopkins and Nook. Watson and Nook. But now this year, you replace those 170 targets. You remove those 170 targets, and you sprinkle a lot of them onto Brandon Cooks, and you give some of them more to Kyle or to Will Fuller, and all of a sudden you have a recipe for success in the middle rounds of drafts. And the reason that I like Watson is because I can spend my first 4, sometimes my first 5 rounds getting the highest value, best in slot player that I can possibly get. So I'm getting 2 or 3 running backs. I'm getting 2 top tier wide receivers, maybe a tight end. And then I'm coming back with a single or a double stack to go along with Deshaun Watson. And that defense should keep them with their foot on the pedal in the second half of most games, as the Texans are one of the 2 or 3 teams that I think are most likely to be involved in a shootout on a week in, week out basis. So in terms of season long, in terms of DFS, we're just going to focus on those ones every week. But in terms of season long, percentage of shootouts on the year, high probability that Houston is the one team that's going to end up in the most of them. So Deshaun Watson is where I want to center around. Obviously comes in at a lower draft pick than either of the 3 guys that I mentioned before. So you're getting a little bit of a value with all of the upside from Deshaun Watson. Matt Ryan, very easy to pair if you go 0 running back. If you're taking Julio Jones in the second, Calvin Ridley in the third, you're probably going to want to get Matt Ryan around the 9th round. If you're playing on DraftKings for your best ball leagues, you're getting him and you're going to get that bonus for all the 300-yard games that he has. Looking at his game log from last year, week 17 against Tampa Bay, week 16 against Jacksonville, 14 against Carolina, New Orleans. He had a ridiculous streak of the first 6 games of the season last year where he hit the 300-yard bonus. No, there is not going to be a lot of rushing upside. You notice that was kind of a theme throughout most of my quarterbacks, is I'm looking for quarterbacks that can add something with their legs. Matt Ryan, at least on DraftKings, adds that 300-yard bonus. That 3 points definitely comes in handy to boosting his floor and ceiling on a week-in, week-out basis. And again, he throws the majority of his passes. It's going to go to 3 guys: Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Double H, Hayden Hurst. So easy to stack with early round guys, or if you want to go double tap in the 8th and 9th rounds with Matt Ryan and Hayden Hurst, you can definitely do that. 300 yards bonus on DraftKings is a big key. Other sites like Underdog Fantasy don't give you that bonus, but the yards and touchdowns will more than make up for it on offense. It does not really utilize the run as much as people want to give them credit for with guys like Freeman and Gurley. You know, Freeman in the previous years and now Gurley there. This is a team that's built around the passing game and has high probability of getting to shootouts based on the division that they're in. Matthew Stafford seems to be a forgotten man, especially based on the ADP of some of the wide receivers and pass catchers that he has. Kenny Golladay with a 2nd round ADP, Jones with a 5th round ADP, and then you can get TJ Hawkinson in the 10th or 11th round at tight end, who I think takes a leap this year and really, really improves. Matthew Stafford going around the 9th to 10th round in drafts. I've ended up with a lot of him as a QB1 and mostly as a QB2, because I'm really kind of prioritizing getting these mid-round quarterbacks, guys like him and Ryan and Watson, because the stacks end up so easy for me. And I think that there's massive upside for both yardage and touchdown. I think this Lions offense is going to jump forward this year from where it was last year because Stafford, with the injury that he had. Obviously, before that, he was a machine. I expect him to move back towards those types of numbers in 2020. Carson Wentz, I have a lot of him, so I figured I had to mention him. My issue is the Eagles are dealing with a lot of injuries right now, and I understand if you're feeling a little bit of trepidation with Jalen Reagor being out for maybe the first 4 weeks, possibly longer. We saw Terrell Williams with the same injury that Reagor had just get shut down for the entire season. They think that Reagor can be back in 4 weeks. Fine. I have a lot of Reagor as well. I'm hoping that he comes back and the connection that him and Wentz had throughout training camp continues. We know what he can do with his 2 tight ends, Goddard and Ertz. And Djax being back is a major boon to me, because if one thing has happened, quarterbacks that play with Deshaun Jackson in the lineup tend to have much better stats than when they play without Deshaun Jackson in the lineup. He is a major game changer at the NFL level. Yards per attempt goes up, passer rating goes up, touchdowns go up whenever Djax is out there. So he does a great job of moving defensive backs around the field, extending the distance that safeties have to play from the line of scrimmage and giving them a ceiling over the top. So to me, Wentz was a guy that I was really heavily investing in. The injuries to the offensive line, it moves him from a top 3 offensive line to like the 14th or 15th offensive line in the league. So it's an above average, slightly above average offensive line right now, which is not terrible. It's at least it's not a minus, but it's not as much of a plus as it was before. Sanders, a great pass catching back. Hopefully his lower body injury gets better. Hopefully Reagor comes back. Hopefully Djax stays healthy. So Wentz is somebody that I am pretty well exposed to, that I'm hoping can have the season that I thought he would have when they were a fully operational battle station, and they aren't right now. But my top value play at quarterback is none other than Cam Newton. He's going in the 11th to 13th rounds, depending on where you're drafting. When he signed with the Patriots, to me, it was extremely clear that they did not bring him in so that they could start Jared Stidham or anybody else. You don't bring in Cam Newton because you don't think he can play. He was injured last year. Yes. Please do not leave me a reply in the comments down below that says, well, Cam Newton was hurt last year, so I think he could get hurt again. That is the laziest goddamn analysis that I've ever heard, and it's got to stop. Okay? Please stop. He was hurt last year. He got hurt in the 4th preseason game, and it cost him the season. That's been fixed. He's looked great in camp. Anybody can get injured because it's the NFL. Every one of these players is one play away from having their season be over. This is the game that we play. We understand that those are the rules. But right now, we have a healthy Cam Newton with Bill Belichick running the show, a good enough core of playmakers between James White, Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry entering his second year, and Rex Burkhead splashing in where he does, 30% of the plays that he's going to run. Cam Newton, in years that he has been healthy, finishes as one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the league pretty much all the time. He's being drafted as the quarterback 18 or 19 right now. So the upside here is undeniable, both with his arm and his legs. If he throws for 22 touchdowns, that is a modest number. Throws for 22 touchdowns and has his usual rushing output, which is like 7-8 rushing touchdowns, 700-800 yards, 600 to 800 yards from scrimmage. You're sitting on a gold mine here in the 11th to 13th rounds. I've been drafting him as a QB2 in most leagues, and I can't think of a guy with better upside in that range. Yes, I like Goff. Yes, I like Roethlisberger, who are going around the same range, sometimes maybe a round later than Cam Newton. But neither of those guys, in my opinion, has the same expected ceiling that Cam Newton does. I think that they have great floors. I love the talent that they have in the Steelers offense at all the skill positions. I like what the Rams are doing. Plus, they have the regression monster is actually on their side this year. Goff, for the amount of attempts and yards that he had last year, did not throw for as many touchdowns as would be expected. So a bounce back to normalcy would mean he would throw for more touchdowns this year as that offense bounces back. But in terms of the top value quarterback on this year, it's definitely Cam Newton going from around 11 to 13 in your drafts. Those are my top QBs that I have the most allocation to throughout my lineup. So I appreciate you guys being here. Stay tuned for another video, which is going to be right up there. Bye.
He's a legend.